Welcome to Life in Full Expression with me, your host, Beth Wolfe. In this show, we will explore, elevate, expand, and learn how to live your best life. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to live your life in full expression or create an expansive vision for your future? Get ready to be energized to fully express yourself, discover your heart's clarity for dynamic direction in life decisions, and develop your unique capabilities so you are delivering your ever-increasing capacities into your world. Join me, Beth Wolfe, and unleash the limitless capabilities of your soul, experiencing amazement, collaboration, fun, and purpose. Life in Full Expression starts now. Welcome, you amazing souls. I am your host, Beth Wolfe at Life in Full Expression. Today, I am going to give you guys 5 key elements to a peaceful path at work. I would have loved to have known these decades ago and used those for myself. So whether you are working for a large Fortune 500 company, Fortune 50, CEO, wherever you are at your work level, employee, employer, sole entrepreneur, I think these are really going to be helpful because as I've studied them and began to implement them in my own life, they are really helpful. So the number one question to ask yourself if this episode is right for you and to continue to listen is, are you really super duper happy at work? And if you answer yes to that, then, move on to the next episode. But if you are not super duper happy at work and you would like to basically up-level your peacefulness and overall contentment and meaning and purpose, this is a great episode for you. So, if you answered no to that question, definitely not alone, right? Especially as we have come out of a world pandemic and things have really shifted in our workplace. There's a lot of different statistics going on that they just don't want to work these super long hours, and they want to feel valued. They want to feel respected at work. And so they're trying all different kinds of things. So the majority of the people with the jobs face lots of challenges and stressors, especially coming out of this pandemic, that can be extremely challenging for you to have contentment at your workplace. And so you might often find yourself wondering how to make things work better, and only to come up at times feeling really empty-handed time again. So I'm going to give you some pointers today on some 5 key elements. So if you're not sure if it's even possible to be happy at a job you don't really like, or maybe you do like your work, but you're stuck in a stressful, hectic, or even toxic workplace, because all of that can exist, is there really a way that you could feel balanced and calm even in these difficult situations that I just put ahead? And I'm going to say that the answer is yes. You actually can. One of the things that I teach some of my students and clients is if you have a really strong internal locus of control, what does that mean? Basically, you're not letting all your circumstances, conditions, and situations really have a hold on your life. So one of the things that was one of the most powerful ways to be calmer and more effective at work is to incorporate mindfulness practices into your life. Let's define that term though, okay? Mindfulness involves focusing on the present moment while keeping an open mind and a non-judgmental attitude. Now, that is something that each one of us gets to discover, develop, and deliver. Really being in the present moment, keeping an open mind, and a non-judgmental attitude. A lot of times in society, we are actually taught exactly the opposite. Stay in the past, we're too much in the future, we're certainly not in the present moment. An open mind may not even have been taught to you or even offered to you in your environment, and definitely non-judgmental. That can be challenging at times. So what if from this day forward, you could discover and develop and deliver this kind of mindfulness practices starting today. So practicing mindfulness can benefit all aspects of your life, and it can have a profound effect on your overall work-life rhythm and life balance. So I want to mention a book that would really be helpful to you. It's called Real Happiness at Work: Meditations for Accomplishments, Achievement, and Peace. It's written by a lady called Sharon Salzberg, and she identifies several key elements of happiness at work, which I'm going to introduce to you, of finding peace. So let's check these 5 key elements out. Let me give you an overview of all 5 of them. Number 1, balance. Let me introduce this to you and also define it of what Sharon says. Balance is really knowing the difference between who you are and what your job is. Interesting definition, huh? Number 2 key element, resilience. This is an ability to recover from obstacles, setbacks, and failures. Definitely. I mean, don't we all experience this in a human endeavor? There's always going to be obstacles, setbacks, and failures. But what if they're not seen as bad? They actually help us to increase our capacity and capabilities. Number 3 key element is meaning. Find your work to be relevant to your own personal goals. And number 4, communication. Understanding that everything you do and say can either facilitate connections with others or they could damage those connections. And then number 5, the 5th key element, is leadership. A compassionate leader responds mindfully and sensitively to employees and creates a workplace where employees feel valued. I mean, ultimately, isn't that what we all want, is to be felt valued? And I can recall in my younger years of athletic medicine that I certainly did not have these key elements, and I was not a compassionate leader that responded mindfully and sensitively. And I didn't have mentors that modeled that either, most definitely. So notice that the first 3 elements are internal and deeply personal to you, while the final 2 are interpersonal and focused on how you relate to those around you. So it's crucial to develop the first 3 internal elements. Remember, I talked about that internal locus of control. You got to develop those first elements first, since fostering that greater internal awareness will really help you and I to improve our communication and leadership skills. So let me give you some questions let's put them out here for this episode. And I want you to be intentionally thinking about this as I go on in this episode. Do you often feel stressed at work? All right. What are your main work-related stressors? What are they? Think about them. If you're not driving and you're able to actually take some notes on this, go ahead and write down what might be your work-related stressors. Another question, does it surprise you that mindfulness could actually help you at work? Give it some experimentation, 7-day, 14-day experiment. And which of the 5 elements that I've mentioned so far to a peaceful path at work do you actually struggle the most with? Okay, so let me do a quick review. Do you struggle with balance, knowing the difference between who you are, and what your job is? Because you're not your job. Number 2, do you struggle with resilience? Do you not really have a great ability to recover from obstacles, setbacks, and failures? And then number 3, meaning. Are you finding your work to be relevant to your personal goals? Do you even know what your personal goals are? And then communication, the 2 outward ones. Understanding everything you do and can either facilitate connection or damage it. Are you facilitating connection or are you damaging connections? And then finally, leadership. Are you a compassionate leader? Whether you're an employee or not, I always believe you're in a level of leadership because ultimately we're self-led. All right, let's dive into this first one, the search for work-life balance rhythm. Well, we've talked a lot about work-life balance in the world. Now it's even moved to work-life integration. And one of the things that between work and life, yet this can be easily eluded. While some people might have figured out the perfect work-life balance, you still find yourself struggling with it every single day. And that's no surprise since we live in a somewhat very full, can be at times, a hectic world. We're constantly spreading ourselves too thin, maybe, and inundated with so much information and data. And we need to juggle countless demands. And what we really get is to find what I like to call a balance and a rhythm, almost like you're creating your own song, and perhaps more of a harmony, and room to breathe in the face of all these demands if we want to really have to be effectively and simply handle the stresses of work. But perhaps allow them to help us, really these stressors to help us discover, develop, and deliver maybe a truer essence of yourself, a truer clarity, like what do you really want? What do you not like and what do you like? And through that, you increase your capacities and your capabilities, like capacities in the sense that within resiliencies, you can move through struggles and obstacles and really have what I like to call a life in full expression. So let's dive into this first pillar of happiness at work, which is that balance. Okay, we've talked about that. I like to call it a little bit more of a rhythm and harmony. And despite all the stress you're facing at work, all right, the good news is that mindfulness meditation can actually reverse the negative impact of stress over time. And with meditation, we focus on training our attention on both our inner thoughts and what's going on in the world around us. One of the things that I noticed that if I can just do mindful meditation in the morning, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, some journaling, and just ground myself to just simply breathe and relax, it really makes a big difference for my day. So as time goes on, we can actually retrain our brain and strengthen the structures that help us with decision making, memory, and emotional flexibility. There's lots of work going on out there. We're doing great work. Dr. Joe Dispenza doing incredible work with meditation. Now I'm seeing that he's even doing walking meditations. So meditations were really going to help us grow in resilience, calmness, and to connect better with others. Okay, if we're better connected with ourselves, then we're going to be better connected with others. And it can help us to be less reactive, more deliberate, which can benefit our workplace performance absolutely, and our relationships with our colleagues. And it can help us have a happier work. Now, as I mentioned earlier in her book that Sharon Salzberg, she gives details to study done on a group of employees who worked for a biotech startup company. Now, the employees were given some basic mindfulness training, which taught them to observe what was happening at a given moment without reacting to it or passing judgment on it. Can you imagine that? So here you are, you're observing something, but you're not basically reacting yet. So after practicing meditation for 30 minutes a day for 8 weeks, this is what they found. The employees showed more activity in the areas of the brain associated with positive feelings than those who didn't practice meditation. Again, Dr. Joe Dispenza has in some of his amazing books where it really shows the difference before and after meditation. So there's some great examples that you can look at there. They also discovered after these 8 weeks that many of them also rediscovered what they loved about their work and had a renewed interest in it. Interesting, huh? So in short, practicing mindfulness can have a dramatic positive impact on how you approach your work. And remember, mindfulness is being in the present moment and really observing, having an open mind, and being non-judgmental. So pretty exciting that can happen in as little as 8 weeks. So if you're experiencing some real unhappiness at work and you've got some pain points going on, there's already a couple solutions that were given to you already. And that maybe you're wondering, I used to love this job and I found it really interesting and now I don't. So here's an answer for you that you could actually retrain your mind so that maybe you fall back in love with your work and you do find it very, very interesting. Well, we're going to take a short break here in a few seconds, and I want to come back and give you number 2 and number 3 key elements of this peaceful path to your work. And we're going to talk more about resilience in the workplace and also about finding meaning at your work. So stay tuned. Come right back after this short break, and we'll go through those 2 key elements for you. All right, welcome back, you guys, to Life in Full Expression. I'm your host, Beth Wolfe, and today we're talking about 5 key elements to a peaceful path at work. Imagine that. It is possible. In this part of the episode, I'm going to talk about 2 of the 5 key elements. Number 1, resiliency in the workplace. So the truth of the matter is, no job is going to be stress-free. I talk about in another course I have about transform your stress to bliss. There are different kinds of stress. There are distress and eustress. Now, distress is something that is this low chronic stress that really kind of never goes away and it's not healthy for you. But again, not all stress is bad. I find with students that I have in my college course and clients, coaching clients, that we've been basically told that all stress is bad. Yet our body and our physiology is really wired to totally transform eustress into something great. So I just want to hand that off to you, that even though you might have been taught that all stress is bad, go ahead and practice one of the aspects of mindfulness and have an open mind that it's not all bad. So even if your dream job, for example, I have my dream job right now. I am a sole entrepreneur. I love to have my own coaching business, and it is a dream job, and it's a great fit for me. And there are times that I put myself in that chronic state of distress. So no matter who we are or what job we have, we all have, really, we get to deal with challenges and setbacks. I think it's just part of this human endeavor. And what if we didn't look at it as a bad thing, but maybe a good thing? And not so much coming at it from a positive mindset or looking at it positive, but just looking at it more as an opportunity. I'm not saying that it's always fun. I'm not saying that it's always easy, but what if these challenges and setbacks are actually opportunities for us to grow? So it's how we respond that matters. Have you heard that one before? If you and I make a mistake at work and then beat ourselves up over it, and then keep replaying the incident over and over again, that's not a healthy way of coping, for you to just run that story over and over and over again. One of my phrases that I use is like, it's not even safe for you to walk down the hallways of your own mind because you're beating your own self up. Well, and this is our usual way of coping with setbacks, is to beat yourself up. It's much more difficult to be happy and effective at work because we are in this human endeavor, and we get to experience things that don't necessarily work out the first time. We can call them mistakes or setbacks, but they're just a setback. We can always move forward. So if we want to be truly content at work, We get to be able to cope with obstacles and bounce back from those setbacks. Every setback, we're also going to learn something, right? If we asked a high vibration question, what did I learn from this? Or what am I learning from this about myself or about the situation? There's going to be powerful answers to that. We also, basically, we get to learn from those mistakes, and we get to start over again with a commitment to basically take from what we learned, do better the next time, kind of the 2.0 version of that endeavor. And this ability to move on when confronted with difficulties and setbacks is known as resilience. And it's crucial for you and I being truly happy in our work and in ourselves. And mindfulness, again, is a powerful tool for you and I becoming more resilient, because it gets to teach us that no matter what happens, the circumstances, conditions, or situations, we can always begin again and keep moving forward. I love to remember when I played volleyball, if the referee saw that there was some kind of play that like it hit part of the ceiling and it was too low, the referee would, basically the umpire would put up two thumbs and it would be a replay. I used that a lot with my kids as they were growing up. So it wasn't that we weren't making a big deal about a mistake or a setback. I go, okay, let's just do a replay of that, and they could practice it again. So let's give ourselves two thumbs up and do a replay. The other aspect of this resiliency is it's really important for you to have good self-care. Many workers experience burnout at the same point during their working lives, including up to half of those in high-stress professions like teaching, social work, and medicine. Now, my previous careers before I became a life, health, and business coach, guess what I did? I was in teaching and I was in medicine. I was in sports medicine. And when I first started in my career, I was working 80 hours a week. It was cray. And yes, I experienced that burnout. I was not taking good care of myself. Burnout refers to a constant state of exhaustion that is accompanied by a loss of motivation. So pay attention to this. Do you feel loss of motivation? At times, do you feel a little bit of depression, fatigue, even a bit of anger and frustration and dissatisfaction? All of those can be symptoms of burnout. And so practicing self-care is one way that you and I can protect ourselves against burnout. Research suggests strategic breaks from work, such as midday rest, more sleep, more time away from work, and more vacations can help boost our productivity, our effectiveness at work, and our overall health. Our bodies simply can't give off energy constantly, and we all require time for rest and renewal. And you might be saying, yeah, Beth, that sounds really cool and really nice. I would love to have all of those, but you don't know my life. Good point. But suppose you work in an environment that doesn't allow more vacation time, midday breaks, or time away from the office. And some of those I mentioned, if you're a teacher, you're not going to get a midday break. You're go. If you're in medicine, you may not get a break. Social work, emergency work. So fortunately, I want to give you, there's some techniques that can help us find rest and renewal inside ourselves. Remember those first three that I talked about? Making time in the day for just deep breathing, for practicing meditation. It doesn't have to take a long time. And relaxing after work are powerful strategies that can help us take care of ourselves and recharge after a long day at work. So those are just a little snippets. Another aspect of this element is overcoming the illusion of control. I can relate to this one. Many people have the mistaken belief that they should have more control over their coworkers, clients, and outcomes than they actually do. The problem with this mindset is that it's not realistic. It causes us to blame others for everything that goes wrong in the workplace, or maybe not everything, but some things. And it can lead us to burnout if we don't change it. So the next time something unexpected happens at work, okay? Because it's going to happen, it's going to come your way. Ask yourself this powerful question: could I have controlled that? And in most cases, you'll find that you couldn't have prevented or anticipated the unexpected, and that there's no need to blame yourself for it. As mentioned earlier, no job is without setbacks, challenges, or failures. And failure, I love to use, it is simply feedback. And the most important thing is how we respond to these challenges. And we need to be able to accept them if we really want to move forward successfully. Now, in my own personal journey, I can remember being pretty reactive in my young years. I'm about ready to go into my 6th decade. And when I was in my 2nd decade of life, I had some strong reactions to things. And man, if I could have been taught at that level and listen to be teachable, that really I was exuding so much energy into reaction rather than learning the art of responding, that I could have channeled my energy into greater self-care. So mindfulness and meditation can help us let go of these illusions, shift our focus from blaming ourselves to acceptance, and help us move beyond setbacks. In fact, this process of letting go and moving forward underlies meditation practice. So when practicing mindfulness, we get to focus on our breath, and we don't blame others. We are not necessarily even blaming ourselves when our attention wanders. Instead, we simply accept the fact that our brain might have wandered a little bit, and we gently bring our attention back to our breath during that time, and we keep going. And each time we sit down to meditate, it's a new start and a new opportunity. So whenever you face setbacks at work, I just invite you to try to see them as opportunities to learn and grow and become more flexible and patient, and let go of any self-blame. Learn what you can from the experience and then keep moving forward. Boy, if you are doing that as an employer or an employee, you are going to be so valuable to yourself and others around you. Now let's look at number 3 key element of a peaceful path to work, and that's finding meaning in your work. Work can mean a lot of different things to you and I, depending on who you ask, right? So some people go to work simply to earn a paycheck, while others work to achieve a desired social status, to excel in their field, or maybe establish an identity for themselves outside of their family or home or life. So as you can see, the meaning of work is extremely fluid and subjective. It depends on the person's perspective. So no matter where you derive it from, having some sense of meaning is crucial to being happy at work. And that's because the vast majority of people want to feel that the work they do matters in some way. And this might mean building strong connections with colleagues, providing for their families, or making a difference in the world. So, what gives you meaning at work? There's a question for you to ask yourself. What is giving you meaning at work? Take a moment, reflect on that question, and remember that our sense of meaning at work can rise from many different sources, and consider what the main sources of meaning are for you. Maybe you're one of those fortunate people who are able to do what they love for a living. Now, I believe ultimately we can all do what we love for a living. It may take some experimenting. It may take some letting go and trying some certain things on, but I do believe that we could be living a life in full expression with that. Here's an example. If you're a professional writer or painter, simply engaging in the act of writing or painting might give you all the meaning you need. Or maybe you're a recent college graduate who's self-sufficient and living on your own for the first time. It's a little bit challenging in these times, but still possible. And in this case, the meaning comes from having a job and being able to support yourself. I know my adult daughters love doing that themselves. And I can remember when I did that right out of college as well. It really meant a lot to me. So maybe your job itself, it might be a little tedious or less than ideal in some way, but you have a really good relationships at work, or the work that you do helps others in a really meaningful way. So ask yourself a couple questions, okay? Again, if you're safely not driving or operating something, you can jot some of these questions down. Are you working primarily for a position or a paycheck? Do you consider your work a profession or just a job? And are you passionate about what you're doing? And then finally, what gives you the most meaning at work? So once you've identified your sources of meaning at work, go ahead and write them down so you can return back to that at any time, especially when you might be experiencing some dissatisfaction or frustration. Go back to that, see what you've written down as a journal. So finding fulfillment when you can't stand your job. I definitely have had a job that I didn't love. So as you can see, having a sense of meaning and purpose in what you do can actually help you achieve a sense of fulfillment, even if you don't like your job. But suppose you work in a job you find super tedious, and it might even be thankless. Maybe you work in a restaurant, or you're tired of dealing with difficult customers, or you work in a low-paying office job where you constantly are overlooked or criticized by your boss. How can you find any sense of purpose in a job like that? Well, if you struggled with the previous activity and you're unable to feel much sense of meaning at work, there are other ways you can find a sense of purpose. And one way to accomplish this is to think about your time at work as an opportunity for doing good. For example, you might tell yourself, I'm going to greet everyone I meet today and treat them with respect. Other examples might be, no matter how busy I am, I'm going to really listen to anyone who speaks to me. Or I'm going to practice being less judgmental of my colleagues and seeing where they're really coming from. It's also important to keep in mind that it's not up to our employers to make us happy at work. That's an external thing. Instead, we need to assume responsibility for our own happiness in our work lives. And if you truly can't find fulfillment at work, it's up to you to find opportunities to cultivate meaning elsewhere. And this might mean maybe you want to write a book that you've been putting off, or starting your own business, or becoming some kind of certified instructor that really you love to do. And by taking these jobs of positive actions, you can find ways to be happy, even if you work at an unfulfilling job. Now, a lot of times that's why coaching clients come to me, is they're feeling unfulfilled, frustrated. Even recently, I have a client that was a teacher for over 20 years, just didn't want to do it anymore. It was unfulfilling, very rigorous work, and she really would love to experience more of travel and culinary experiences that she'd like to bring to people. And she honestly took the step of, she is resigning from her teaching position, and she's going to be pursuing a whole new career. But even in the midst of her still being in that teaching position, she's still there up until, the end of the school year. The things that I mentioned here is that she could be, even in this moment, be greeting everyone with respect and value. That she could be very present in all her conversations, even in the midst of not liking her job and finding meaning in it. So ask yourself, where could you do that in your current job? If you're the person listening to this episode and you don't really like your job very much and it's not fulfilling, what are some of the ways that you could change things from the inside out? That's really the primary question. So I'm going to leave you with that question. We're going to go to another break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about the final key elements, number 4 and number 5. Number 4, mindful communication. And then the last key element to a peaceful path at work is the art of leadership. So we're going to go to this short break, and I'll be right back with those final 2 key elements. Well, welcome back to this final segment of Life in Full Expression. Today we're talking about 5 key elements to your peaceful path at work. And number 4, we're going to dive right into this, is mindful communications. So it's skillful communication, you may already know, but let's give ourselves a reminder, is essential for connecting with and relating to your coworkers, your colleagues, which in turn is crucial for our overall happiness at work, right? If we're relating well. What's more, our ability to be present to our coworkers, to manage our emotional states and navigate complicated relationships is necessary if we are to perform our work responsibilities effectively. Because there's going to be complications. It's not always going to be super duper smooth. So again, mindfulness can help you and I learn to be more attentive. Remember, it's about being present to those around us, manage our feelings, and navigate workplace relationships. So let's look at this. There's a time to speak and a time to stay silent. Let's look at this. The concept of self-expression is one that's often misunderstood. Even my own title of this show, Life in Full Expression. I'm basically not saying that you express yourself in any way, anytime, that you just have complete, freedom to just do anything and everywhere you want. We are all part of a large community on this amazing earth. So back to this, many people think expressing themselves means saying anything that's on their mind whenever they feel like it. But this is actually far from skillful communication. We can actually express ourselves in a skillful way, or we could express ourselves in an unskillful way. One of the things that my mentor taught me is, instead of creating a lot of names to things, that if we can just simply say that that was skillful or unskillful, it's just really a lot more respectful and valuing to that person. So using self-expression effectively and appropriately might mean this: being honest with ourselves, knowing when and how to share truthful information, and knowing who to share it with. And the way that we communicate is crucial if we want to maintain peace and well-being in the workplace. So I want to introduce to you that there are 3 main criteria that we use and we can use to help us become a bit more skillful in communication. So before you express what's on your mind, you might want to consider the following. And this does also, I'm inviting you to actually notice what you're noticing. Notice your thoughts before they actually are said out loud. So here's a question. Is the information true? This is one of the most important things to ask yourself when considering whether or not to say something. Failing to be completely honest will result in people losing trust in you. And also knowing that is the information true? There is information at the level of fact that is true, and there's also your perspective, like your viewpoint. If we were all in a theater together and looking at a play, we're not all sitting in the same position. There might be people in the very front, on the sides, left, right. You might have, be way up in the balcony or be up on the sides. You might even be somebody that actually might be backstage. All of us have these different perspectives, so keep that in mind. One of the things that my mentor talked about is there's different sides of the beach ball: red, green, blue, yellow, and so being aware of that. Third question: is sharing this information useful at the present moment? That's a good one. Be attentive to the context and timing, as well as how receptive your listener is. It's important to understand who you're speaking with and how open they are to new information. Third question: am I sharing this information in a kind way? It's important to communicate in a kind way, which means in a polite, non-aggressive, and non-confrontational manner. So if your intended communication does not meet those three criteria, it's typically best to hold back from saying it at the current moment. Assuming the information is true, you might be able to express it another time or in a more sensitive way. Another aspect about communication is saying no to gossip. Being sensitive to others and knowing the right time to express something are crucial for skillful communication. And these skills are increasingly lacking in Western culture, just a tad bit here, where sensitivity tends to be unappreciated and cynicism is become quite common. This can be seen on many reality TV shows. They are truly one of my least favorite kinds of shows, because the contestants are pitted against each other and are encouraged actually to belittle and smear their opponents. And this type of dynamic is unfortunately present in many work environments as well. Many people don't realize how destructive it is to value personal gain, power, and self, grandizing themselves over cooperation, kindness, and teamwork. And this type of behavior also breaks down connections among colleagues and coworkers and is detrimental to skillful communication. So even if you're surrounded by people who disparage others, I'm going to invite you to resist the urge to do so and to choose to be polite and sensitive to others instead. Boy, I notice when I'm doing this, even to this day, it's less and less. But the fact that I feel like we are all one, if I am criticizing that person, then, I'm actually criticizing myself, and that doesn't help at all. You might even inspire others to do the same. And if not, you might opt to seek out a work environment where colleagues want to see each other succeed and not fail. That it might be a more collaborative environment rather than dog eat dog. So when it comes to communication in the workplace, it's also important to be aware of the role of gossip and what a destructive force it really is. Both at work and otherwise, when people get together in groups, they often can't resist gossiping about others. Do you notice that sometimes? And once people hear gossip, it's usually hard for them not to repeat it. But we all know that gossip can have devastating consequences, and we should resist engaging in it. Just kind of let it pass by, and the mindfulness can help us here too. I wanted to give you just a short little snippet of an example. Here's an example, just hypothetical here. Amy and Brianna are junior partners in a competitive law firm, and both are aspiring to become senior partners. Well, one day, Brianne whispers to Amy that she overheard Sarah, another junior partner, telling her sister over the phone that she's pregnant and worried that she'll be automatically eliminated from the open senior partner position. Well, Amy tells Brienne, and she doesn't want to hear it and urges her not to tell other people in the firm. She also makes a conscious decision not to share this information with anyone, recognizing that it's not their business. So taking time to be mindful about what we say and the possible consequences is a powerful way to stop gossip in its tracks and ultimately promote better communication and relationships at work. All right, bringing this in for landing, number 6, peaceful pathway to work, the art of mindful leadership. Mindfulness at work shouldn't be limited to employees and workers. Those in leadership roles can greatly benefit from practicing mindfulness, and it can even help them become more effective leaders. While many leaders tend to be focused on themselves, perhaps, and their careers, those who resist the urge to be self-focused bring many strengths to the table. For one thing, it helps them see beyond their own role and to regard their organization as a whole. Now, they're mindful of the big picture, right? And are able to see more clearly the strengths and the limitations of their company. They can also see how employees are treated by their managers and the general atmosphere in their organization. This, in turn, is really going to help them respond mindfully and sensitively to their employees and to promote the workplace where employees really, truly feel valued. And this is important because it's truly the right thing to do, but it can also strengthen the organization. So employees who feel valued and respected are more productive. They perform better at work and more likely to remain loyal to that particular company. So what is a mindful leader? Well, in her book, Janice talks about finding a space to lead. She describes a mindful leader this way. A mindful leader embodies leadership presence by cultivating focus, clarity, creativity, and compassion in the service of others. Leadership presence means that really you're entering a state of non-judgmental focus and attention to the present moment. It's when you give all your attention to what you're doing and who you're interacting with. It's really what makes others feel listened to and respected, like they're the only person in the room. One of the things that I like to remember to say is, what if we remember the law of increase? That every conversation we come into with another person, they basically leave your presence feeling better than when you would come into it, that you are edifying them, you are really listening to them and valuing them. So this ability to be present is essential, not only for the leaders themselves, but for everyone they interact with. So let me leave you with this. Leadership presence can impact their family and friends, their organization, community, and even our world, the butterfly effect there. And you might be wondering what mindful leaders have that you don't. And the good news is mindful leaders, like all of us, they're not born, they're made. And you can learn to cultivate this leadership presence over time. Thanks for tuning in to Life in Full Expression. I am your host, Beth Wolfe, and I want to encourage you today to be asking powerful questions, come from your awakened greatness, and I hope to see you next Monday on Life in Full Expression. Until then, you guys, go live an amazing week. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Life in Full Expression with me, Beth Wolfe. Tune in each Monday at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Be your most elevated self and pursue a path of fulfillment, clarity, expansion, fun, and live in your best life. If you would like to discover the 7 dimensions of your life blueprint of expression, to fully express yourself, reveal your heart's clarity for dynamic direction, and activate your unique capability, visit BethWolfe.com. That's Beth, WOLFE.com.